Welcome back, Frasiacs. Brand new Sarah Fraser Show Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Fraser. Today we are talking about 3 must-watch documentaries. Well, like 2. Okay, more like 1, actually. 1 I am obsessed with. Some of the greatest television, I think, in the past year is currently happening on HBO. I will tell you about that. And I do have another big step in our egg donor journey to have our second baby. And I have to tell you guys, I just get so many sweet, kind messages over the past, several months and years as we've been trying to have our second baby since KJ, for 2 years. And we've had 2 miscarriages since then. I'm also 42. That doesn't exactly help. I say, ladies, we did our live podcast show with David Yontef, a lot of women on. I said, have that baby, ladies, have those babies, because it's harder when you get in your 40s for some of us. So, but it's been a challenge, and I am ready to move on to an egg donor. There's been many steps, but we completed a big one today, and I will tell you about that. Let's talk about must-see television. I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately. I go in waves with TV. I don't know how you all feel, but I watch so much reality television, so much for TLC. Sister Wives is coming up, and I watch Welcome to Plathville, and I watch some of the 90-day franchises. I can't not even keep up. Then I watch Bravo because I do my Bravo recaps with David. And then people have said to me, watch Love is Blind, dating shows, UK. I don't know. I cannot get into Love is Blind, UK. I cannot. I can't get into Love is Blind anymore, period. You know the formula. I don't know. I'm sorry. I know everybody's into that, and I will give Love Island a try when it comes back. I know it just ended with Ariana. I will give that a try because I'm curious about that. But I find these dating shows very difficult to watch for the most part. I'm over The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. I enjoy a good reality show. I got into the Surreal Life this season, Surreal Life season 2 or 3, whatever it was, with Chet Hanks. And that to me too was great the first couple of episodes and then fizzled out. So now I'm back on my documentary kick, and there are some epic documentaries you need to watch. Let's start with Scott Peterson Face to Face, because this one is still getting buzz, still getting pickup. A lot of people have a lot to say about this. Face to Face with Scott Peterson is on Peacock. It's the first time in 20 years he has spoken out. I will tell you this. There's 2 big Scott Peterson, Lacey Peterson documentaries out. One was on Peacock, the Face to Face, and then one is Lacey Peterson's story on Netflix. If you watch the Lacey Peterson one, which I did, and my mind was refreshed of all kinds of details that I had forgotten about in this case. If you watch that with the Scott Peterson Face to Face, you can skip to the final episode. I think it's like 4, 5 episodes for Scott Peterson Face to Face. It's almost identical with the Lacey Peterson telling the story. Same detectives, say a lot of the same analysts. And then the very last episode is when you kind of get the experts making their case, and a lot more from Scott Peterson as to why he could potentially be innocent, which really, spoiler alert, by the way, spoiler alert on all these documentaries. I'm going to give them all away because they're great stories. The Scott Peterson Lacey one is like horrific. Okay, just ignore the whole great stories. Okay, they're not really great stories. They're tragic stories being told in a new light. So at the end, the last episode is essentially making the argument from these experts and Scott Peterson that there was a robbery in the area, in the Modesto area where Scott and Lacey lived, in their direct neighborhood. And Lacey confronted these burglars who were breaking into a neighbor's home. They got into an altercation. She was thrown into the van, kidnapped, murdered somewhere along the way, and then the van was torched. And they believe there is DNA evidence on that mattress to prove that Lacey Peterson was, in fact, in that van. And if they have any DNA hits from Lacey Peterson, essentially Scott Peterson goes free. Okay? But what fans are so disturbed about with this is Scott Peterson throughout this documentary, and then all the clips they play back from years ago, sort of constantly has this awkward smirk on his face. And fans are discussing this online. Like, why can't this guy get rid of the smirk? Like, it's so awkward. He has it 20 years on in jail. The filmmaker gets access to him in jail and he sort of smiles throughout it. It's just like the guy, and he does have emotion because I thought this guy is so strange, so emotionless. And then in this last episode, he does cry, talking about Lacey, remembering his son Connor, who passed away as well. And, seems to make more of explains more of why he didn't talk to the press and why he was uncomfortable with it. But fans are still not really buying this, despite the fact that the Innocence Project has taken on this case and seems to believe there's real credible DNA evidence that Scott may not have done this. So we'll see. I'd be curious about your thoughts. It was okay to me. Scott's not really a talker. And again, it doesn't mean he's a murderer, or maybe he's well and clear the murderer. But also, Scott throughout these documentaries has, or at least the Lacey Peterson one, at first was going to do a lie detector test. Never did it. Now, a lot of people feel the lie detector tests you can fool them, they're not accurate, and they can get false reads. So I guess the lie detector test is really out, but the detectives stand by their work. They say they really did close work. And I mean, in these cases, it is kind of like, yeah. I mean, the robbers could do it. What do I know? I'm not an FBI agent. So anyhow, but that's my take on the Scott Peterson face-to-face doc that's currently airing on Peacock. Skip to the end. It's the most fascinating, I guess. And it makes the biggest point, like, could Scott be innocent? Okay, the other documentary, which fans are hit or miss on, but I thought was excellent because I did not know this story, is another one on Netflix called The Untold, The Murder of Air McNair, which is the murder of famous legendary Titans quarterback Steve McNair. Never had heard of Steve. I think I had heard of Steve, but I didn't pay much attention. This murder happened back in like 2009. I don't think I gave it a lot of thought, memory. Obviously, I was a Patriots fan, grew up in Maine. Then I lived in DC, and I'm a Commanders fan. So I didn't pay much attention. But Steve McNair was this unbelievable athlete, quarterback, took the Titans to the Super Bowl. They lose in this like heartbreaking, just shy of the touchdown range. And then he has this girlfriend, he's a single guy, he's living his life. He has a girlfriend and volatile relationship. She's a waitress at Dave and Buster's, comes from a terrible, like tragic background as well. Her mom was murdered when she was little. She was born out here in California. And they show all these text messages leading up to his death. And she's like, I feel like I'm losing it. Like I need to be hospitalized. I need financial help. So Steve's sort of helping her, telling her it will be fine. But his friends come on and say that Steve was a player. And I mean, he was single. He was single-ish. I mean, I guess he was telling this girl, Jenny, that they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but he was not married and he was out hooking up with everybody and anyone he could. So you go through this whole thing, and in the documentary, at first you believe it was a fascinating twist, although one that really wasn't fully explored, which is where they're getting backlash. So Steve, and actually, by the way, he was killed on July 4th, 2009 in a murder-suicide. His death left his wife, Michelle, to pick up the pieces as well as reconcile with her husband's infidelity. And now she dedicates her life to a very important cause. So Steve was actually married. I believe they were separated. This was kind of part of his whole, he was involved with a lot of other women. He was out and about. And so he was not living, as far as I know, with Michelle at the time of his death and when he was out dating Jenny. So at first you think, okay, Jenny right before this murder suicide, she gets pulled over for DUI. Steve, while she's getting pulled over for DUI, Steve called up a friend. The friend comes, picks him up, and lets her like get arrested, go to jail. Bye, girl. Doesn't contact her for days. She's asking for help to get out. So a lot of people feel the police put together that she became this like jilted lover. She was so furious. She purchases a gun online from somebody, kills Steve, kills herself. But then, right as the show was wrapping up, essentially, this third party guy who's kind of he wrote a book about Steve McNair, an independent investigator. He comes into the picture and he's like, the police did the worst investigation you have ever seen. The gun that was purchased online, they go down to the guy's house that sold this woman the gun. They talk to him for 10 minutes. They believe his story. They don't do any background, which come to find out this guy was like, I mean, just career criminal, violent offender, all this stuff, and kind of was also connected with Jenny. The story is wild. Now, I thought this was really well done. However, people are like, okay, but it sort of leads you to believe, could Steve McNair and Jenny have been murdered and the murderer is totally free? Again. Now, of course, I don't think the investigators are not going to be like, oh, yeah, maybe we got it wrong. The way this is left is that this story that this guy that sold her the gun did it is highly improbable, is what the whole documentary says. But people are like, this is the laziest documentary you've ever done. You all didn't have any other investigators, FBI, anybody else really dive deep into if this guy's theory that McNair and Jenny were murdered could be possible. So it's sort of just widely accepted that it is, in fact, a murder-suicide. And maybe it very well is. But it's just so fascinating that the police really didn't investigate this one guy who clearly was a nut job as well and criminal, and just sort of left it as, yeah, it definitely had to be this jilted lover. Okay, what? But very fascinating, very tragic documentary. If you're into sports, if you are a Tennessee Titans fan, I'm sure you know McNair very well, much better than I do, and definitely worth a watch because I thought I couldn't stop watching it, and I thought it was very good. I get the plot twist at the end, but it doesn't seem like some fans are believing it, but a lot of other people believe it's a conspiracy theory and it's not helpful in like, the whole, like what actually happened. Okay. But then there's a documentary that I'm obsessed with that you must watch. It has been a long time since I've watched a documentary and not run to the internet to find spoilers. And I'm talking about an HBO documentary called Chimp Crazy. You guys get up. Did you like Tiger King? I was so, like everyone, Tiger King dropped during the pandemic. I was so fascinated by Tiger King. The same director, Eric Good, is now doing this new documentary called Chimp Crazy about a kind of the whole chimp trade down in Missouri, the state of Missouri, because they have very lenient laws. And it's about the main character is Tanya Haddix. She's an Ozarks-based exotic animal broker who's obsessed with chimpanzees. Eric Good, I cannot even tell you, she is the wildest character. She looks like Tiger King, except for in female form. And she actually sort of resembles a chimpanzee to me. I don't know why, but like, I think it's because she gets so much lip filler. The lips, the hair. She's obsessed with exotic animals. But here's the catch. Here's where you're going to be outraged. And I don't know where this is going because I'm staying off the internet. Eric Good misrepresents himself. He lies to Tanya Haddix he ends up getting a producer proxy, a guy who was also involved in the exotic animal trade world, to pretend to be the documentarian of this documentary to kind of lead Tanya to believe they're going to show her in a favorable light, because this producer by proxy was also in the world of exotic animals. You guys, And this this Missouri-based, it's not Tanya. It wasn't Tanya who started it, but they even talk about a woman who, in fact, bred. Remember Travis? She was like the ultimate monkey, I guess, seller, trader. She is the one that sold Travis for $50,000 to the Connecticut woman who then, like Travis the chimp, ripped off the friend's face, fingernails, eyeballs, everything. Charla Nash. Remember that story? I'm sure you guys remember that story in Stamford, Connecticut. It was wild. So they really follow this long time chimpanzee trader. And then Tanya Haddix, who comes into the picture. It is the best thing I've seen on TV. It is dry. I laugh. I can't stop. Like, it's sad. I laugh. And of course, PETA is involved. So PETA, several years ago, gets involved because they hear about all these exotic animal farmers down in the South, in Florida, like Tiger King, in Missouri, where it was legal to have all these exotic pets. And so they start taking up lawsuits and investigations that these animals are being mistreated. I will tell you this. While I believe Tanya Haddix loves these animals with all her heart, she even says in the documentary there's Tonga, this very famous chimpanzee that was in tons of movies and on Hallmark cards. She says she loves Tonga more than her own, or Tonka, more than her own son. It does seem that where these animals were being housed was not, it just, they didn't have a lot of room. They're in cages. They seemed like they were going crazy, which, by the way, was part of Travis's problem in Connecticut, who ripped off the woman's face. He was like living in this cage. They're animals. They're freaking animals. So while they believe their owner is like their parent, they can snap at any time on people. I mean, even the scene, I cannot even laugh. It was just so disturbing. But the scene of the police describing going to the woman's house where Travis had ripped off the woman's face, and how the police were almost mesmerized by you guys, you can't make this up. The officer says that Travis was so unhinged, he ripped off the police officer's door, and the officer says, deadpan to the camera. He said, "I know no one's going to believe me, but I truly heard Travis the chimp say to me, 'Do it. Please put me out of my misery.'" So he loads Travis up with 4 or 5 bullets. It's so sick. It's so sad. Like, why are people keeping exotic animals? Oh, and then Travis crawls back into his cage and dies. You guys will not, I'm telling you, but it's not, it's everything. It's every emotion. It's empathy for the animals. It's tragic, yet you can see why people love chimps when they're babies. Chimp parties were all the rage in the South years ago. And I mean, look, I used to go, I always tell this story. When I lived in Maine on our Friday night, everybody went to the dump and the town dump, and they would cut open trash and they would bait the bears and their little baby bear cubs with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And we would sit on the hood of our cars with an ice cream and we would watch the black bears of Maine eat trash. Like, that was my Friday night growing up. We all thought that was we thought that was amazing entertainment in the 80s. We were like, this is the greatest. Why would we go to the Rumford Zoo when we have this? Which the Rumford Zoo, by the way, was like a horrible, I'm sure, abused animals for so long. Terrible. In a way, thank God for PETA, although PETA is annoying, I will say. And you see it in this documentary. However, PETA is right. These animals need to live on these beautiful sanctuaries and be outdoors and enjoy their life with other chimps, and they are not pets. But I'm telling you, you will be glued. And I'm so torn about this because now I truly dislike Eric Good, the director, because while Tanya Haddix should not be keeping, and I forgot the biggest part of this whole thing. Okay, major spoilers. So in the documentary, the first 2 episodes are already out. Tonka, this famous chimpanzee, the woman in Missouri loses all the animals, okay? And Tanya Haddix is like working for her and helping her out. This woman that's famous for breeding chimps, selling them all across the country to Hollywood, everywhere, is shut down. She has 8 chimps or 7 chimps. PETA comes to take them and relocate them, and there's one missing, famous Tonka. Tanya says Tonka died. He died a couple of weeks before they were going to come out. They had him cremated. Sorry, there's no bones. There's nothing left. He's just all ash. So PETA's like, that absolutely didn't happen. Like somebody would have incineration records because even if you burn a major chimp's body like that, there'd be bones left. Where are the bones? Tanya doesn't produce them, has a lawsuit. PETA, basically loses the lawsuit because the judge says, look, while I think Tanya's a liar, there's no proof that this chimp is alive, right? So I can't do anything about Tanya. Tanya takes the film crew downstairs and Travis is living in her basement. She shows the cameras living in her basement in a giant cage. You guys, she was lying the entire time to PETA. But she's such a character, you almost like her. I cannot even. But then I hate Eric Goode, the director, because he fooled her. She never would have said yes. She's thinking that this guy who's the director, the fake director, is her friend in the animal world, understands exotic animals, is doing this to show how terrible PETA is. Like, she's misled. And Eric is actually the guy behind this. How does this guy have any credibility after this? I mean, honestly, how would Eric Goode, and this to me, the problem, I got to get Eric on the show because I really want him to answer this question. To me, this is where I think people have lost all trust in the media. Now, of course, Eric doesn't identify himself as a journalist. He doesn't identify himself as a journalist. He says he's just more interested. He's an animal enthusiast. That's how he got involved with Tiger King. But I mean, it's so deceitful. This is why I feel like people are not, this is why they hate the media. They're never going to do interviews. I can't even believe the people that we should be telling their stories. They're never going to go on camera. They're going to see things like this. They never would agree to it. And the problem is his whole point, which is these animals are living in inhumane spaces, is kind of mute because you feel for Tanya because she does love these animals in this real messed up way. And, she has this beautiful place in the Ozarks where I think she's taking care of a lot of exotic animals. And she has these little macaw monkeys instead of chimps because chimps grow up to be huge. And then they're like crazy with people, clearly. But then you almost have empathy for Tanya. Like she's being set up and that's not right. You should be truthful of who you are. I swear. I don't even think, is the media going to exist in 8 years? I mean, who would trust anyone? Now I always say to people, truly, I mean this, and I'm thinking about doing this now when I do interviews. It's like you record and I'll record. Like we'll both record so you can't manipulate it the way that you want. It's so crazy. But anyway, run, do not walk. If you were into Tiger King, if you love a juicy documentary, if you love people that are true characters in this country, Chimp Crazy is so good. It's so good. You will be completely addicted. You can't recommend enough. All right. Lastly, so we went today and we signed off on our release to purchase 8 frozen eggs from an egg donor. We are going with this wonderful woman I'm so grateful for. I don't know her name. It's anonymous. People ask me that too. Can you meet with the egg donor? Most of them do say, yes, we're open to it. And certainly as the child gets older, they're open to like connecting with the kid in case they have any health questions or anything like that. But we signed the release to purchase 8 eggs and have them shipped here to an IVF clinic in California. We met the IVF doc in person. I don't think I'd met him before in person. And we're ready. We're getting ready. So guys, I'm thinking it's not going to be a transfer until October or November, because I believe in the next couple of weeks, the eggs will be shipped. And then I've got to get the next protocol. I'm sure they unthaw them first, see how many unthaw and live. And then they fertilize them with Schmann's sperm. And then they have to wait like 5 days. So I don't know. And I know Schman and I I've got to do that fallopian tube check again, which is when they just run some water or dye through your fallopian tubes, make sure that nothing is blocked. They'll check the uterus, check my cesarean scar one more time, all that. Probably see if I have any inflammation in the body that would be preventing me from getting preggers. Schman's going to do, I think, an infectious disease test, and then we could do the transfer hopefully in October or November. I'm getting so excited. I walked in and I thought, oh, I'm getting excited again. Like there's hope. It's so scary when you have these miscarriages over and over. It's hard. I think if I were younger, I'd be more optimistic of using my own eggs or trying again with IVF on my own. But I'm glad I tried the IVF process. I know what it's like. If it had worked, that would have been awesome. But I'm excited. I'm excited to try a 30-year-old's eggs and, see what happens. And God willing, we can do it. And then we also got the paper. We submitted our first set of paperwork we're going to go through the county. We've gone back and forth with agencies about fostering to adopt here in California, but I got a really great recommendation to go through the county of Los Angeles. We're going to try it that way. Then we can always switch to an agency to foster to adopt. So we just submitted our first round of paperwork. They're assessing it, and then hopefully we get assigned to a social worker soon. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. And I'm just thanking my lucky stars and just with tons of gratitude and thinking of all of you. If you want a baby, go for it. Keep at it. Don't give up. And we'll see what the next chapter brings for us too. So as long as we're all healthy, we always say that. David Yontef and I always say, got to be, the greatest gift, the only gift you need is your health. That's the only thing. The rest of it will all sort itself out, all work itself out. So I'm so incredibly excited and grateful for you guys. So many encouraging messages like keep going and don't be ashamed to say out loud that you want that second baby and to be willing to do it. So I really appreciate that encouragement. It means so much to me. And I hope that I am sincere with it. And I know some people are just trying to have one healthy baby. That's the thing I always struggle with. I'm grateful beyond belief to have the experience of having KJ from Schman's sperm and my egg and that experience of carrying and delivering him. And some people are just trying to do that. And I want that for them so badly. And then at the same time, you also want a second child, or I'm sure there's some of you wanting a third. So it's a balance. But anyhow, love you guys. We have a great rest of the week planned for shows here on TSFS. Tomorrow's David Yontef. Friday is Dr. Maya from Maya Plastic Surgery in the DC region, helping you work through any fears, any questions you might have if you've been thinking about having a plastic surgery procedure. And Dr. Maya is known not as like one of these surgeons where people look unnatural, but she does a lot with people who just, born with a nose they dislike or born with that hereditary double chin and they want to feel more confident about themselves. So tune in if you've had any fears or anxieties. She's a top doctor in the DC region and even beyond that. People from all over the country come to see her. Saturday, Rachel Yucatel from Misunderstood Podcast joins for a pop culture and political roundup of the week. And Saturday and Sunday, we'll round it out with David Yontef. Also, check out our Reddit page, reddit.com/r/The Sarah Fraser Show. Love for you to check that out and become a part of our Reddit community. And lastly, I get some emails like, hey, what's your Via Hemp code? What's the code for article furniture? Could you let us know? As a reminder, in the description of every single one of my podcast episodes, I put every discount code that I am currently promoting and every company I'm endorsing. I love getting you guys a deal. I try to never pay full retail price for anything. That's why the IVF journey, it drives me nuts. They never are offering a special. So I always love a deal. I love a discount, and I want that for you. Head to the description of all of my podcast episodes, and boom, you can find it there, whether it's article furniture, honey playbox, adult toys, and so much more. Okay, bye everybody.